submission settings, comment settings. Some of these things still exist. Display timer information. I like this one. I'm going to talk about that for just a second.
What's that password words field?
Oh, I'll show you that in a second. This password words, I will show you later. It's configurable. It's one of my other great joke slides. But essentially, when you're registered, you didn't get to pick a password. It emailed you one. Yeah. It was in the teaser for the session. I'm going to show you what all those words mean. But what's interesting is if you turn on the database logging, or the sort of version of database logging, see down there in the very, very bottom, execution time, 0.0549 milliseconds. Matt Farina is so jealous. Man, it's blazing fast. And it is blazing fast. And look, a poll module is here. Hey, let's see how the vote went. Yeah. So, read more. Poll module, pretty much unchanged on this. So that's sort of the quick tour of what's going on there. I should get the demo. All right. The first thing that I actually want to point out, the sort of second bedrock value or behind Drupal is this social aspect, right? There's no concept in Drupal 3 of a passive site visitor. There really isn't. People are expected to use the site. They're expected to log in. They're expected to engage. That's sort of the entire concept. Because otherwise, you'd just be spitting out static HTML files, right? People just come in here and read stuff. And I find that really, really fascinating. And it's also a tool for collaboration. And these things are baked into the very beginning. The old motto, I think we have a new motto in 7 now. We have marketing strategies now. But the old motto of Drupal was community plumbing. Right? And that's really what we see in Drupal 3. These are, again, some of the assumptions that are baked into Drupal 3's original design, right? I think site users are always contributors. Posts will always be moderated. I didn't show you this, but submitting a blog and submitting a news page are subtly different. They have slightly different data models, which is kind of interesting. There's user permissions. There's administration as a separate action. There's a version of the tracker module, so you can go and see all of my posts. I can go see all of your posts. There's also this baked-in assumption, and we'll look at this a little bit in one example, that users have some level of technical competency, right? And that's really, really important, I think, when we talk about where Drupal came from. And again, we laughed at this, right? This is really, really helpful and useful, right? Excuse me. If you're not using dashboard, this is what it looks like in Drupal 7. That's a huge improvement. All right. This is the content list in Drupal 3. This is for the administrator. It's the same thing in Drupal 7. It's not that alien. I mean, there are systems and methods and assumptions baked in that we've never quite gotten rid of. That's my lesson it's really number 3, but lesson number 2. Self-image is self-determination. That means the way that you look at yourself, and I know it's the self-help Tony Robbins crap, but it's true, right? The way that we talk about the code, and I thought Dries' keynote was great, but way too developer-centric, right? But that's where he's coming from. That's his background. That's what he understands. That's how he views the problems. It's interesting to see the progression of his keynotes, because the marketing and research stuff comes in. The bit about like tablets and the adoption of mobile and things like that. That was like marketing strategy stuff. It's like he's been getting the crash course of business school since he started working at Acquia. And that's really fun to see, actually. So concepts like it's easy to use and useful have very, very different connotations to different people, right? And this is something, again, that we're struggling with right now. So this is the answer to that question about passwords. So these are all the default passwords in that field, right? So when you register for the site, it says, okay, you're user number 4, and it sends you an email, and it sends you an automatic password. What it does is it mashes 2 of these together randomly and sends it to you. And look at these choices for it, right? Yeah, so we have Dark Geeks and Neo, and that's because, the Matrix is only 2 years old at this point. Hack and Tux, because Linux is a big deal, and they live on Cola, and they want to be Sith or Jedi, Java and Pearl. I don't know what Fish is doing in there, and I have no idea what ASN is. boss is a Java term. It's just really goofy. Right? Dave Reed actually knows what Dries' original password is. I can't tell you, but if you ask him later, he'll tell you what it is. It is not Java God, but that's as close as I can come to say. So some of these things have changed. This is one of my points, right? Moderated posts are gone, they're not in core anymore. I didn't show you this, but in Drupal 3, you can schedule posts. Everyone uses the scheduler module, right? It's in Drupal 3. You can time the publication and unpublication of any piece of content on the site, which is really fun. Drupal 3 had input filtering, which we don't do anymore, right? Data was sanitized before being sent into the database, and we've abandoned that as a practice. There was wiki links syntax baked into things, and we do this in a different way now, and this auto-generated password concept. And then we, this thing, which we looked at. Which brings up this point. These are legacy features, right? All of these things are still in Drupal core, right? These are all very, very important concepts, like hooks and RSS, data separation. It's not the greatest, but there's a real attempt to do separation of presentation from data structure in Drupal 3. And I think it's one of the things that let Drupal survive. There's persistent variables. There's theme overrides of a sort. There's SQL injection protections, right? There's sanitizing things. There's output filtering. It's interesting, there's both input and output filtering. There's page caching, there's translations, all these things, right? Block visibility. The block visibility, though, is per user, not per path or per role, which is kind of interesting. This is the next lesson. Bad architecture won't survive. There's a reason we looked at the list. No one's going to use typo 3 anymore, are they? Right? And when I talk about architecture, I don't mean how the code is written. Like I said, we're not going to look through and pour through the code in this talk. I don't think it's important. What I'm talking about in terms of architecture is the way the system is thought through. Right? The idea, the philosophy behind building it, and the native extensibility that's there. I mean, like, I got started in Drupal 4.5 because I was doing some analysis, and even as a non-programmer at the time, I could tell that it was built to be extended, and we were actually at the time looking at interoperability with legacy systems, because I was working for a newspaper, right? And you could see it was there. No one was using it. The first Drupalcon talk I ever gave back in Sunnyvale in, what, 06? Is that right? 07? Sunnyvale 07 was on XML data import structures in Drupal. At the time, no one was talking about it. We have feeds and all that stuff. Now, the feeds module, feeds API, came out of a breakfast talk I had with Robert Douglas in Sunnyvale, because I was talking about XML because we were looking at this interoperability. My point is, even the nascent Drupal 3 stuff, which is in some respects really crude. For example, one of the things I had to patch is that the associative array keys in the code are treated as string literals and not put in quotation marks, which causes a problem because some of them use protected PHP keywords. So you'll have $array bracket context close bracket, and PHP 5 goes, that's great. So I had to patch that. But that's not what I'm talking about with architecture. I'm talking about the way the system was fundamentally engineered, like I talked about with translations. I mean, you've got this 22-year-old Belgian kid who's writing an international system so his buddies can go on beer runs. That's pretty amazing. So, quick list of legacy functions that were in Drupal 3 that are still here. These are very much favorites. Conf and init, the whole conf and init process is there.